Good morning. How's everybody doing? Welcome to week 9 of ZENcast. Today we're going to be doing checking out what we have in the future for you. So glad you're able to make it today and be able to watch, and feel free to join in chat during the ZENcast. The demonstration today is the test system in minutes. So you have a zone up in minutes. How can you do that? So we'll do some tips on that. So glad that you're able to make it, and we're going to move on. I did a few adjustments so we can have transitions hopefully go a little bit smoother today. So moving on, let's do a little bit of channel housekeeping. Remember to log into the YouTube chat so you can join the conversation. And remember that if you see a response from somebody, you can put an @ sign and start typing their name, and it'll come up, and you can direct message them. You can DM them directly from chat. It'll be displayed, but at least they'll get a highlight, and they'll know that you want to talk to them, or you're responding to what they had mentioned. So feel free to know that that's there, and understand that that's available to you. Also, the exclamation point commands. So you'll see in my presentation exclamation points with letters after them, like YT settings or something. If you go ahead and put that in chat, you could see that it'll come up with either a URL or some type of response, so that it'll automatically tell you what's going on for that particular topic. So in this case, exclamation YT settings is YouTube settings, and it kind of tells you in the chat, responding to you, how to make those settings. So one thing I do want to mention is make sure that you have autoplay off, and you set the quality not to the 720p60. You'll get a better quality there, and you'll be able to view it without too many issues of it trying to adjust automatically. Okay. So next, Zencast Feedback. I'm so glad you guys are here. Of course, there's the Google survey. If you do exclamation point survey in chat, you'll see that it'll come back with a link of where to take that particular survey. Okay, it's been out there a while. We've had a few responses, and this is our way of trying to connect to see how you want to interact with Zencast. What is your feedback? How often do you want it? What are your topics? What do you have as far as product usage? How often you want it? How long do you want it? You know, I put a limit of 2 hours, but we can cut that back because I know everybody's busy. Do you want it the same day? Do you want it after hours? Is it easier for you after hours? Are the recordings easier for you? All these details you can put in that survey. So if you get a chance, go ahead and go out there and fill it out. We'd love to understand what is in your environment and how you'd like to use Zencast. There's also an email. I've talked with people via email and asked them the same types of questions. Also during support calls that we have, I've been talking to them and asking about if they've viewed Zencast, if it's functional for them, if it's working for them. So these types of things we're investigating, because the last day of the pilot is today. We're going to have a meeting later this week and discuss how we change it up, what we're going to do, and how we're going to modify it. So moving forward, some of the top 3 things to learn I put out there. There was 8 responses, and there were things like imaging, database maintenance, asset management, patch management. So it really encompassed a lot of different things. I've tried to bring some of that into it in the first pilots, doing some service desk and bringing the PMs on, talking about ZENworks reporting and actually showing you, demoing ZENworks reporting. So a lot of these things, this is where we want to go. We want to make sure that you're being filled with the information you need to know and that it's relevant to the community. So these are some of the things that we asked about in that survey, top 3 things to learn. And moving on, we also asked not just the 3 top things to learn, but what are your top issues, right? You got mobile management, more about ZAV and repackaging, database maintenance, DMZ setup. We covered a little bit of that a couple weeks ago. Server performance, we're going to get into that in the future. That's always one of the top ones. Is my zone healthy? Is a server performance working right? And then we also have the ZCM for OS X. What can we do? And the Kanaka and Key Shield, those types of things. So be aware that we're looking at these things. We're trying to bring them into it. Obviously, there's such a broad, ZENworks is so huge that we can only hit a few of them at a time. But we're working on that and trying to make it at least your ZENcast. So that's what we're looking for, is your input on that. So we thank you for those that have already done that, and it's still out there, so feel free to take that survey. Again, exclamation survey, click on the link in chat, and it'll take you right to the Google survey. Some of the things in the future that I've talked with people and asking what they are looking for. These aren't in any particular order, though. Next week will be Bundle Anatomy, building up a utility, and how you would grow that utility and make it do everything you need to do, so it's just a fire and forget type thing. Other things like build a patch from scratch. We have SEs that are helping customers do this, and I think it would be great for more people to know. And we're getting input that they would like to see this more often. This way you can have basically a demo that it'll free up some time for the SEs to get to know you better as we go through some of these demonstrations. Implementing asset management or provisioning through the store for service desk, logs, how to read them, right? Database maintenance, we saw that on the requests. We introduced a new database, right? Vertibase, Zookeeper, and Kafka. I don't know all the answers, but I'm going to work hard on trying to get them to you, and at least we can demonstrate what they do and how they work, and getting those expertises in here, which we've done. We've gotten developers in here, we've gotten engineers in here, so we can actually see what the product does. Server performance and zone health reports, OS X integration, mobile management. So all of these things we're hoping to bring to you in future ZENcasts, should it move forward, and depending on the format of the actual ZENcast. So some conference news. Micro Focus ZENcast YouTube, we're going to start moving this to the first and third Tuesday. So we're going to have, it's going to be at 9 o'clock MDT Mountain Time, North America. You can also subscribe on the Micro Focus Support and Training channel right here on this channel. Hit subscribe, hit notifications if you want to know when we go live. But it's going to be the first and third. That'll give it a little bit of room to breathe, so we can get some stuff compiled for you. And then it also gives you, it gives us the opportunity to give you new stuff and not repeat some of the old stuff week to week. Okay, so that's going to be our cadence as of today. That may change depending on what the meeting goes with, the future meetings, on how we're going to format, because we're getting more and more input from PMs and management in trying to figure out the best way. And that's why your information is so important, taking that survey, giving us your feedback, because we really want this for you. We want to make sure it satisfies your needs as it moves forward. Micro Focus Virtual Universe 2020 for US. North America, date is 19th through the 21st of May. All right, they're going to go virtual for that one as well. They had a very successful one in EMEA earlier in the year. So they're going virtual again this May. So be aware that that's there, and you can register for that. Also, TTP Virtual Conference 2020 North America is going to be the week of the 13th and the 20th. So I just got news this morning from Peter Atkins. He mentioned that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays will be the days that the virtual conference is going to be, but it's going to be for 2 weeks. All right? So be aware of that. He'll have those postings on the ttp.org site under events. So be aware that that's coming up. All right. And I think I have exclamation. Oh, nope. Sorry. Let me move back. Product news. Okay, we've covered some of this in the past, but ZENworks Configuration Management. In Lighthouse, it's going really, really well. Public release is in May. So barring any ship stoppers, it should be May, targeted for May and mid-May. So I think that's something to look forward to. We'll cover some of the new things in Update 1 upcoming here soon. PRU April 2020 came out, obviously the beginning of the month. Every month a new PRU, product recognition unit, comes out. So be aware that that's there and patch your devices or deploy that PRU. ZENworks Patch Management, we talked a little bit and even had an engineer on about the ESU, the Extended Support Updates subscription for Windows 7 and Windows Server 2008. Since those are end of life, but they still have, you still may be on them and may not be able to release them or decommission them so quickly, you can still patch them. One of the things that we want to do is being able to, like I said, patch from scratch, right? Doing a demo on setting up a patch from scratch. So either you have the subscription, which will do that for you, or you can do it manually, but knowing those steps. ZCM DB migration tool. Again, we've covered this a few times. Sybase or MS SQL or Oracle to PostgreSQL. That's version 3. Oracle, all three of those work on the same tool, which is version 3. So be aware, download that. That's in your customer portal. Under your ZENworks downloads, you'll see it down at the bottom. ZENworks reporting server. Of course, we had some security patches released recently. Want to make sure you patch your server out there. And then ZENworks Service Desk 8.1.2 was released beginning of the year, but the appliance security updates were released in February. The cadence is quarterly, so in May, guess what? Another update. So be aware of that. Put it on your schedule of things to do so you keep your appliances patched. All right. So product updates, ZCM 2020, Update 1. So these are some of the things that are in it and to look forward to. Performance improvements on the device relationship page and diagnostic page. So sometimes it's lagging, sometimes it's not as accurate because it hasn't contacted back yet. They've done a lot of back-end work on getting these improvements in so you have accurate information. More administrator-defined fields, the ADFs. I think there's 10 or 20 of them. Now they have a lot more so that you could really leverage that in your environment as your environment grows and the needs are there. Bundle action requirement for registry key value and string type. So they're actually adding some action requirements available to you for the registry key value and string types. And being able to do that with your bundles, it'll help leverage, and we'll build some of that out when we do our bundle anatomy. We'll see those requirements. PowerShell support for a bundle action. So you have a bundle action, and now you have PowerShell support for that as well. Pending status to include the last contact date. Sometimes this is an update as often. So the pending status, they're going to have that column in there so you can see the last contact date, which has really been recommended. And these are from the Ideas portal. The top 5 here are from the Ideas portals directly. So they've been looking at those. They've been implementing those in the updates or major version releases as it comes up. So do be aware that Ideas portal is very important to us. We want to make sure that those are used and utilized. Web app improvement, dashboard enhancements, Mac Catalina support, certificate remit, platform support for iPad and iOS 13, provisioning profiles, and then the Windows 7 ESU, which we mentioned earlier. So be aware that those product updates are there. That Windows 7 ESU is a subscription-based, but you can manually make your patches. Product news lifecycle. If you put in exclamation point, you say, where did I get that information from? Go lifecycle. And there's a URL if you need to get to it. It should pop up here in a second. But the ZENworks product version, the release date, the committed support date, is it on extended support? So be aware that 11.4.3 obviously was committed support through October 2018. 2017 is through October 2020. So we really want you to stay in cadence with the product as they come out. So this will help you schedule and plan your updates so that you stay within support. If you are on the older product like 11.4, don't just give up. We ask for help. We can look at the upgrade cookbooks, and they'll help you fast track to the particular version you need to get to. So be aware that those are there. Service desk as well. So be aware that 8.1 ends in October 2021. 8.2 is coming out soon. So that may be might double check that October 2021. I think it's October 2020 because 8.2 is coming out real soon. I mean, it's going to be after summer, probably fall, and that's about the same time frame. So they move that way. But again, if you're on the older versions, look at those cookbooks, try and get up to speed, plan it out so that you can get your versions up to date. Use and leverage the latest technology that you have paid for, right? And then the Windows operating system, just a reminder, Windows 10 1809 is May 12th, 2020. So that's coming up in May. Be aware that that's going to be expiring. As Windows stops support, we obviously don't test on those anymore because they're not supported platforms for Microsoft. So doesn't mean that it won't work. Just be aware that as patches come out, we won't be focused on those products that have obviously become end of life cycle. Okay. Some of the resources. So we have COVID. There's a great article out there on COVID and how Micro Focus is working with their customers, with the communities, and in some places giving out licenses to, I know, filers out there. There's other things that they're talking about, and security and those types of things. So be aware that that's out there. We're really trying hard to work with the community and help you through this time. It's not an easy time, as we well know. Everybody's shifted from internal to external, having to set up and reorganize their infrastructure. So you're having heavier loads from the external sites. Again, documentation. If you type in docs, there's your link there. That's for all the products, obviously. Go down to ZENworks, pick ZENworks or Service Desk or Filer or whichever one you need. But that's the documentation site there. And the knowledge base. Make sure that you are able to get to the knowledge base. That's where the TIDs are. Those technical information documents are valuable, and you can search from them. Search on the site to find what you're looking for. SSL certificates, or I'm having a particular error code. Put those in. It really helps. And don't forget about the support forums, right? You guys working peer-to-peer, helping out each other, really collaborates great. And we kind of keep an eye on those so that we can kind of chime in if we know that there's a particular issue with a particular problem that somebody posts, or if there's a quick fix. We're also jumping in trying to help you with those forum questions or things that you're looking for. And then ZENworks Webinar. The ZENworks Webinar has been redesigned. I mentioned last week there's a new index, and you can, just because it's not a webinar in 2020 doesn't mean it's not applicable. We did a health, what was it? It was a zone health maintenance last year, and it's still applicable to your zone. All those things are applicable. Some things may have grown or evolved, but be sure to look back. I think it goes back to 2015. They did a great job on indexing these, giving one place to look for webinars, and it's really a nice setup. So do go out there and double check that particular URL. It's out in the community forums. So we're talking about ZENworks test environment today. I don't have a guest on today. We're going to jump right into the test environment. How many people out there have a test environment? I have to say, there was a saying where I worked before that if you don't have a test environment, on purpose, you have one on accident, because that something may go wrong, right? So make sure you have a test environment, and we're going to try and prop up a test environment today in our demonstration real quickly. We're going to show you how you can populate that particular environment. I'm going to go over to the lab real quick, and we're going to start off. We got a couple of slides, but while it's building, we can go back to the slides. So we're going to go over to the lab, and we're going to, I'm going to close this out. And I have brought in a 2017 test device. We're going to add a particular, you have to add on an appliance. So at very minimum, throw up an appliance. It's the easiest thing to do. We're going to add a disk because that's what is required. And we're going to go ahead and create a new virtual disk. We'll say 100 gigabytes. Okay. And we're going to call it, that's our VA storage, and this is all documented, right? Okay, so we have our disk. We should be able to power this guy up now for 2017 and start our own little zone, our own little test zone. The first thing it's going to do is ask us for our root and ZenAdmin password. This is for the OS and for the administrator console that you'll see. So as this comes up, it's going to do a few things. This will wait here for a second. I think we can go over to the slides at this point and drop back. We'll be dropping back and forth on this. So let's go to the slideshow and let's go on over. So we're going to, in the overview of this particular demonstration, we're going to talk about the hardware and platform. So what are some of the hardware maybe? Well, we're going to talk about the hardware platform, the build, how to build the zone, how to populate the database, and then what about managed devices? You know, this is brand new zone. How do you get devices in it? Okay. So as far as the hardware and the platform, we've developed and we've got it in Excel. This is going to be on the. Cookbook after update 1 comes out, because I'll fill in update 1. But this is basically, let's get this a little bit larger for you. This is basically a comparison, your zone version, where you may be, and how to get to 2020. Okay? So if you're on Windows 2008, you can see that it's no longer supported in 2017. You'd have to get off of it. It is 2012 is, so you can actually go 2012 straight through 2017. But if we look at 2020, you can see that it requires, or it actually is 2012 too, and 2016 and 2019. Okay, so this particular document, if you're running on SLES, same type thing. And then, you know, and this is all straight from the documentation. We've been able to clean up the documentation by going through this particular process. There are some details like the checkbox asterisk. You know, SLES 12 requires a particular RPM to be run. All right. So be aware of some of those items as well. All right. RAM, you know, it's grown between all the way up to 2020. It's now at 16 because of the Vertica database. CPU cores has also grown. Okay, disk-based calculation, how to calculate for setting up a zone. Some database requirements, also what is supported under the database. So again, these will be out on the supported site under the cookbook. And we also have for the satellites and managed devices. If you're a managed device, minimum upgrade version is 11.3x across the board, and so forth. So be aware that we have this, and then there's also what's left, inventory only. If you're the customer that's doing inventory only, we have that as well. Okay, so this will be a real handy tool to be able to see what's going on in your environment, and how to path your way through upgrading. Let's go back to our, there we are. So we're going to accept the license agreement. Right here, this is the OS. We're going to put root password. I'll put the famous Novell. And then any TTP, we're going to go to Mountain Time. Okay. Any NTP servers that you want to put in. Host name. testp1.digitalair.com. Okay, so it's going to be named test P1 for first primer. This is going to be 192. Oops, let me put numlock on. And we'll call this 41. Now remember, we've only gone through 3 screens so far, and I always put 8.8.8.8 as an additional DNS. Next, it's going to look for our disk. Now we're getting into our 4th screen, and then it'll take off. Wants to make sure and verify that the disk we use is the right one. Give it a second. There it is. It sees our 100 gigabytes. You can give it a different file type if necessary. We'll leave default ext3 config. And it's going to take off now, and it's going to start building. So we're going to go back to our presentation, look at a few more slides while this is going on. So hardware platform, we looked at the matrix. That'll be in the cookbook. It'll help you from going from document to document to document. That's really what it's designed for. But be aware that this is all documented in the documentation. So if you're just going from 17.0 to 2020, just check out the 2020 documentation and it'll all be there. Okay. Hypervisor appliance. So what hardware do you use? Bring up, if you have a hypervisor, bring it up, bring the appliance up on that. Very plain and simple, easy to manage. You probably have experience in it if you do have hypervisors in your environment. And then older spare equipment. I used to have, in my previous employer, I'd have the old stuff that was decommissioned. I would use that for my test zones, right? So that really came in handy. Build a zone. So we're going to do this today. How do you populate the database? And so we're trying to get something that is comparable to what we have in production. So one way is to clone the database, but make sure you make some changes in that so you're not conflicting, right? But clone the database and make some changes so that it sees the new test zone. That's one way. Scripted zone build. That's what I'm going to show you today. Is I have a script that'll build a zone. I've done some exports. I've done some commands to build this script, and we'll go through the script in detail. So that once we run it, a zman command, it'll just go and run through it and build our zone out. Another way that obviously is export and import. You can export your bundle from your production, import it into your test environment, and then you could test, right? You could see if it's working right on the managed devices or on the zone, see how it responds. So making sure that you have a golden bundle when it gets to production is important. So you can also build you can do subscribe and share, and you can manually build, right? So subscribe and share is you have your production zone and you have your test zone, and you set up your zone subscribe and share between the two, and it'll toss them back and forth so that you have comparable or bundles in both. And of course, manually building. You bring it up in your test zone. One way to do it is you have a new product that's coming into your environment. You go ahead and run that application in your test environment, building your bundle, right? Or your policy or whatever you're doing, and then distributing it to your test managed devices and making sure it's make sure it's golden, and then do a zone subscription over to your production. And then, or you can export and import, but you can go over there and subscribe to your test zone. Once it's golden, bring it over. So that's available there. Be aware that that's an easy way to know that you have a golden application before it goes into production. Now, one thing to remember is your test environment is going to be somewhat sterile, right? It's not going to have all those extra bells and whistles and things going on that your production zone may have. So those types of details have to be considered and understood as well. Let's go back to our, so we're at test P1. We're going to start off, and we're going to get back to the slides in a second. I'm going to go ahead and bring up a URL. We're going to bring up our administrator console, which is HTTP 192.168.1.41:9443. And I'm sorry, where did I get that? Right from the appliance. Okay, HTTPS tells you where it is. If you have DNS running, I have not set up DNS for test P1, so it's not there. So I typed in the IP address. We're going to log in as ZenAdmin. And what was the password? Super secret password is Novell. We can go ahead and say that. Now that the OS is up and running, it's starting to run the ZENworks install. So you need to understand whether this is the first primary server or if it's being added to the zone, right? If it's being added, you'll click on this link here and add a primary, which means you need the administrator credentials to log in and add a server, add a device, right? In this case, it's a first primary. We're going to configure the first primary server. And the zone name, we're going to go test zone. Okay. Password for the administrator password. So this is the administrator in ZCC. Super secret password. And confirm it. And then what type database? We don't want to pick Sybase because we're going off of Sybase. We did that demonstration last week or previously. So we've gotten off of Sybase for 2020 because we may be going right into 2020. But we want to see how the 2020, maybe we want to see how the Sybase database migration works. Pick Sybase, right? And then run the database tool on this particular test zone, see how it runs. It works, I mean, it's just great. Embedded PostgreSQL, okay? So let's say we want to run through the whole thing. We're at 2017 on a Sybase. We'll go ahead and do a Sybase. We know we can't get any farther in 2020, but we can see how it reacts to the upgrade should we run that DB migration tool. So we're going to go embedded Sybase for this particular scenario. And then it's going to ask us about our certificates, internal or external. We'll stick with the internal. We'll select finish, and it's going to take several minutes to build this. Obviously, the view log configuration is here, but we'll go back to our slides while this is churning and see what else we have as far as putting up our test zone. I wanted to do this live so you could see how long it really takes. It doesn't really take all that long. They've done a great job at this. Let me get the slideshow back up. Okay, so we talked about building the zone, cloning the database, scripted zone build, which is what we're going to do, import, export, import, zone subscribe and share, and manually build. What about the managed devices? How are you going to get managed devices into this test zone? You have everybody already managed on your production environment. Well, you may have some VMs, right? You can scan the subnet for particular devices. You may just, and we'll cover it. You may just re-register some devices. Previously, I had a from a previous employer, I had a training room that I was in charge of. And this would be for different departments to come down and do their training on their application for their users. And so what I would do when there was free time and I needed to test in ZENworks, I would re-register those devices from the current production zone into the test zone. So, you can do an import file to get dummy devices in there, which I'll show you when we populate our zone, but that won't really give you any more than having workstations or devices in the zone, right? You can create groups and stuff at that point, but those particular managed devices aren't really managed. They're just dummy devices until the device comes in with that name. And as I mentioned, register or re-register. So again, I went ahead and I'd sit down and I'd unregister as long as it's the same. So we had our production zone 2017 update 2, let's say. My test device was 2017 update 2. I wanted to see how update 3 would react, right? So I would upgrade my test zone to update 3. I would upgrade, then I'd know how the servers and the primaries and the satellites work. Then I would upgrade my production. Now my managed devices are at 17.2. My production is at 17.3 and my test is at 17.3. I would unregister I'd unregister from my production zone on a managed device and then register it into, just using the ZAC command, into my test zone as a 2017 update 2, run the upgrade to it, deploy the agent and see how it would react. Does it boot? Does it reboot? What different functions in that deployment do I want to use to best facilitate in my environment? So that's what I would do in that particular scenario. I know you guys have been doing this a long time. You probably have your own scenario worked out, and I think that's great. If you do have some, go ahead and share in chat. We'd love to hear about it. But for the most part, that's what I would do. That's what I did in my particular environment to see how things would progress with my managed devices. I just re-registered. Of course, I needed to make sure that the version on my managed device was equal to or less than what I'm registering into. Otherwise, it won't register, obviously. And then I did have some newly re-imaged devices. My training environment, I would tell it to register into the test zone after re-imaging instead of into my primary zone. So that way my test training room would go on into the test zone just like any other image device would, except it's into the test zone instead of the production zone. So those are some of the tips that I've done in the past or experienced in the past that seem to work well in our environment. I'm sure you picked up some good ones for your environment as well. Okay, we're gonna go back to the lab and see where we're going at this point. We're at 44%, so it'll probably take another 10 minutes. No, not 10 minutes. Probably, maybe 8 minutes to get through this, and then we'll get ZCC up. Oh, it went to 63. Maybe going faster than we thought. Let's go back to that matrix real quick that I showed earlier. I hope this is helpful. It covers the database of the primary server. Okay. It shows when things were dropped off and when new devices are added. It shows RAM and CPU, disk space for the OS, as we mentioned. Disk space for the appliance, the requested disk space for the appliance. Database requirements, Oracle, you can see when Oracle 11 dropped off, right in here. Oops, sorry. So Oracle 11 dropped off here. You're now on 12. Let me bring this down a little bit. There we go. So you can see the progression that you'll need to do to get to the next step. What's supported? Clusters, the service pack for those particular servers. PostgreSQL. Virtual hypervisors that are supported. Which ones were dropped off? You can see that the Citrix Zen server was dropped off and then re-added in 2020. So it's on until this point. Again, this is directly out of the hypervisor. And this is on the appliance side of the column, you could see. Because it's a hypervisor, it's going to be an appliance. All right. Dependencies. LDAP, what is the .NET framework? 4, 4.5. The Novell E directory, the authoritative source, certificates. Notice here in certificates, we now have the MDM server certificate, which requires 1 to 2 years. And the 2020 update 1 will account for that. If you have to update an MDM server separately, because normally all the primary servers are done at the same time. But now you have this MDM server that requires a little bit different change, which is 1 to 2 years instead of maybe your 5 or 10 years that you have set. So development is configured a way on the update to modify that so that you can make sure that you can be aware of that particular primary server and 1 to 2 years instead. Reporting server support, mobile management. What are some of the browser supports and OS supports? Display support hasn't changed, straight through, all the same. But of course our browser support's changed a little bit over the years, right? I mean, we're talking a lot of years from 11.4. So these different versions are all documented, so you can look at those there. Okay, same thing goes with the satellites, but remember the satellites have some FDE requirements. Okay, if you use an FDE on 11.4 or update 0, and you need to move to update 1 or higher, you need to make sure you look at this particular tag so that you can properly upgrade those devices. So those notices are in there as well. Again, you can see where Windows 7 is dropped off, Windows Vista is dropped off, XP is supported but only on the 11.4X agent. Thin client sessions, Linux server operating systems, and then the Linux workstations as well. And remember, there are some like this one, ZENworks Patch Management is not supported. And that's at the top. I won't bug your eyes out by scrolling real fast. Macintosh workstations, right? Minimum RAM, CPU cores, disk space, and so forth. Let's go back and see how we're doing. Oh, 99%, we're almost there. And then the hypervisors. So you can, in Linux, Windows, what's supported? Windows and Linux for SLS 12, Zen on SLS 12. Virtual Desktop Interface, VDI, Microsoft VDI, and then certain dependencies. So like ZENworks supports Windows 10 and has migrated from older version to a newer version. Meaning if it was 7 Enterprise to 10 Enterprise, that works. But it does not support going from Windows 7 Education to 10 Enterprise, right? So that's just something to be aware of, some little tidbits there. to be aware of. Okay, let's go back over and see how we're doing. Almost there. We can view the configuration log. All right, and it's telling us what it's done. Of course, this is just the information. If we wanted to do all, it'll get very verbose. So if we had any errors, we would be able to see them. We don't have any errors. So we'll wait a couple more minutes to see this go to 100%. Once it's at 100%, we'll need to be able to drop some files. What I've done is I've exported some out of a production zone and bundled them up, scripted. Oh, let's look at the script while we're waiting. It's a great idea. Let's go on over. I'm going to open up. This is import any zone. So we have a batch execute. Bring this over. Oh, let me run it with ++. See if I can get it bigger for you. So I've gone through, and these have to be in a particular order for some of these, right? You have to create the admins before you can create the admin. That's not true. There was like having if you're creating a bundle, you have to have the folder created before the bundle's created, so the bundle can create into the folder. Those types of things. But if you look, there's some questions for me as I evolve this, but running administrator, I'm basically turning off the credentials so it won't ask me every time I run a zman command for the credentials. So I turn that off. Then I create a couple of administrators. Then I create credentials. I have some admin roles I want to create for those that can author and those can publish. Both policies, bundles, and then patch management zone. Create admin role rights. This is who can do what, where. So obviously the publisher has God rights, and the author has God rights, and the publisher has publish rights, limited rights. So, or vice versa. All depends how you want to work it, right? You can, and then I do an active license check, zman li. Then you can actually plug in your license code in here, depending on which one you are licensing for. Your NCC registration, put in your email here, your registration. In the script, you'll unrem it, right? You're going to take the rems out so that it'll actually run those. Otherwise, it'll bypass them. Then it'll display all your license, your system status. Then we create some folders. Then we create some groups. Then we create some servers. These are dummy servers. Okay. And this one's going to fail because I don't have I started off with a Windows device and I was going to move it to a particular location. This one will fail because it's not going to be my appliance that I'm building now. We can modify that if we need to. Then registration rules, registration keys, rule set. I'm going to display that. Then create bundle folders. Okay, all the different bundle folders. Then I have all my bundles, zman BCs. Then I have bman policy folders. And then PCs, I have some some policies to go in there, and then some groups. So these are some of the things. And then I have, remember I mentioned you can create dummy devices. Well, I have CSVs that basically throw in dummy devices in these folders for corporate workstation, device workstations, support workstations, and servers. And you'll see that as we go through. And then I turn off those credentials again. All right. So this is what this particular batch does. I have a second one for 2017 because that was built on 11.4, but as 2017 came in, mobile came into the picture. Let me open that up. And so we have some mobile policies. Okay, so we're going to run both of those. Let's go ahead and close this. We should be at 100%. We're going to hit close. Now we basically brought up a zone. We currently have it on Sybase in case we want to test our PostgreSQL database migration tool. It's on 41, Sybase. We'll go home. Now let's go to ZENworks Control Center. And we're going to log in as administrator. And log into their test zone. I'll save that. Not licensed. It's telling us that. And we can leave enabled for optimization. That's fine. And then the telemetry, we're going to use defaults. So we're good there. Again, this does not cost anything if you own ZENworks. You can throw up an appliance. And we haven't licensed it anyhow, so we have 60 days. If we look at our configuration, or actually, yeah, configuration's fine. We have one device, 17.0. All right, nothing in system updates or anything. All right, but if we go home, we could see we don't have really anything in the zone at all. Policies, there's no folders. There's no bundles, bundle folders even. So let's go ahead to the next step. We're going to need to turn on the SSH services so that we can upload to this device. So we're going to do that. We'll go home. Now I'm going to bring up WinSCP. And we're going to go to a new session. And we will go to the actual device. We'll accept the key and we're in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the products where I have those scripts. And actually I'm going to go up one and import both of these into temp. And upload. So take just a minute. So we're bringing in everything so we can run zman commands right on the appliance itself. Do a refresh. Not yet. And in there we have quite a bit of stuff. As you see, it'll build out. There are a few errors in the script, which I mentioned. There are some things that won't work right, but you can go into your zman command or zman log under the log location on the appliance and actually see where it failed, so that you can correct those and make it even more pure for your environment, for your test zone. And we are done. Okay. Add 2017 and import. Okay. So let's go over to our terminal and file. In our terminal, we're going to go su space minus. Let's see if I can get this bigger for you. Will terminal go bigger? Oh, good. Should be bigger for you. There we are. So we're in. Any zone import. And within any zone was that file batch, called batch. So we'll do a zman bex, which is importing a script. Basically, bex is for the script. And we're going to type batch for customer txt. Username, this is the ZCC administrator, because you're running the zman command. Now it's running the script. Okay, now remember that turning off the credentials, the ASC, it's asking for the administrator password to turn that off. And I'll go ahead and put that in. Now the first part of the script was adding new administrators. Hopefully I didn't fat finger that. I think I did. Let's see. Normally it goes right through, so I must have fat fingered it. Your password display. Oh no, it took it. Now it's running ZMan AC, which is add credential or administrator credential. So we're going to go on ZCC admin 1, and it asks for you to retype, and now it's creating all the things in the script. There's our LR, our license. It's deactivated. You can see our subnets. We put in some network and some locations. Now it's creating some packages. Okay. There's a couple errors in there, but let's see. It'll give you a tally at the end. Now it's doing those policy folders and policy creates. Here's some locations, and here's the, if we look, these are those dummy devices. Okay, we had 13 errors, not too concerned, but we got 121 commands that were successful, so we know it was fairly good. If we wanted to see what was wrong, we can go to var opt Novell, log, ZENworks, zman. Oh, it's because I got it so big. Zman log. I'd have to download. Let's open with, oh, it's a zip. Let's go ahead and save this file. But that's the log that you'd look at. Actually, if we go to logs, ZENworks logs, we can see it here. So we could then search on error and get a few of the errors. This is, it shows the last 100 lines. Okay, so you can fine tune that particular text file. Now the other thing we want to do is we're on 2017, that we want to add those 2017 ones. So let's go over here. Oh, it closed all the way out. SU space minus. And let's go to cd temp slash, the other one was add. And within that was 2017. So zman bex 2017.txt. ZCC password. Now it's throwing in a branding policy, which was introduced in 2017. Then some mobile policies. This is all gravy. If you're into the mobiles, you can have that. You can just do those. You can see we got 22 successful. Let's go over to our control center and refresh. You can now see 37, 12 workstations and 2 servers. Click on the servers, we can see there's a prototype server. If we go to our workstation devices, actually I'll go to home, our workstation devices, you can see these are all dummy workstations. They don't really have an operating system or anything. Now, if you're imaging and you bring these devices in and they're named the same, it'll then populate those areas. Now, if we wanted to look at the configuration locations, I created a test location, a test network environment. You could see that system updates won't work because we haven't set up entitlements, because that was remmed out. Remember, we didn't put the licenses in and we didn't put the system update in. But if you do, they'll automatically be registered and you'll be good to go. So, and maybe you want to discard it after you do this migration, DB migration to PostgreSQL. So it all depends on what you're testing, but within 40 minutes, we were able to get a zone installed, populated with particular bundles or test policies or whatever. And now we're able to test and try and see what's wrong with a bundle, or see how an upgrade works, or XYZ, right? So just wanted to show you that. We are set to go for this particular device. And if you go to the ZMan logs, let me go over to show you. And you go to ZENworks. We're on 2017, right? So we'll go to Control Find. I'm going to look for ZMan. There's ZMan. And of course, all of your commands are in here for, depending on what you're setting up. Bundle commands, we did some bundle BCs, we did some locations, we did some credentials. So I just picked them out of here, made sure they're in the right order, and off I went. Okay, there's exit codes here if you're concerned about that. Troubleshooting using ZENworks command lines is here. Of course, it'll call out that ZMan log. Workstation commands, but I've had this particular script on 11.4.3 for a few years, obviously, 4 years, 5 years, and then 2017 for the past 3. So they're still applicable, right? They may be older bundles, but maybe I need to upgrade. Now I have my Office 2013 and need to upgrade to 2016 or something. I now can deploy my 2013, and then I can go ahead and start building a bundle in my test environment that will go towards a managed device with 2013 on it, upgrading to 2016, and we're good to go. Okay, and then you can bring it back over to production so that you can use it as your golden app. No questions. I don't see any questions in chat. I hope you're not falling asleep on me. I hope that was useful information. I'm going to go back to my slideshow. So that was in the lab. Some important information is making sure you know that the cookbook's out there. There is an 11.4 cookbook as well. So if you're that far behind and you need to get up to speed, use that. It'll be very helpful. The 2017 upgrade cookbooks, the 2020 upgrade cookbook also has those things about the Sybase database going out of support for 2020. Be aware of that. ZENworks documentation is there as well. And then also know that the DB migration, we just published a 4-part series of the DB migration tool. One that details all the logs and what it does when it does a migration, where things go, what it creates, what it decommissions, those types of things. That's the details. Then we have 3 more demo videos, training videos, that are 2017 Sybase to Postgres using the DB migration tool, and then 27 zone with MS-SQL going to Postgres, and you could use the same thing with Oracle. And then I also have one, if you're on 2017 and you forget that part of the Sybase and you launch the ISO tool, what does it do? It launches the DB migration tool automatically, and I have that demonstration in there as well. So 4 new videos there There's also a new video on Service Desk regarding upgrading from 7.5 to 8.1.2. So look for that. It was published last week. Good information in that. It gives you all the logs and the details for doing those types of upgrades. Okay. And what else do we have here? ZENcast, more ZENcast future changes. So we're going to have some meetings. As ZENcast moves forward, you may see the format move a little different. It may be called something different. I don't know. But we want to make sure it's for you. Please go to the survey and make sure that you fill that out so that we can get more information of what you want out of ZENcast. If this is good information for you, if weekly is good, we'd love to be able to know what you have in mind. Again, next week we're doing bundle anatomy, building out a utility. So we're going to have a utility that goes out and grabs some information, some policy information. GPO's not working right, and we need to get a Zen info. We need to get some policy info. Oh, we need to run GP edit or GP result, those types of things. So we're going to build that out next week. I do want to mention that this is National Heroes Day. How convenient is that? All the heroes we have doing the COVID that are helping us out through this pandemic. So we really appreciate all of you that are out there. Just want to shout out to those heroes and tell you thank you. And then for all of you in the audience, I just want to make sure, stay safe. Be out there, keep family close, stay healthy. And we'd love to see you next week. It would be great to see you next week. So we're going to end the stream now. I want to say thank you very much. Hope this format worked out well for you, and we will see you next week. Cheers.